Welcome back to Driftwood Stories, where the winds blow softly through forgotten places and starlight lingers like breath on marble, where time folds gently and the world grows quiet. Just enough for an old truth to whisper through the dark. Tonight we journey not into the forest, nor down to the underworld, but across the sands, endless, golden and still. A desert untouched by storm or sound, a place where even the wind walks slowly, and there at the edge of all maps, not marked, not named, rests a figure carved from thought and waiting. The Sphinx, half lion, half woman, all silence. She does not guard treasure. She does not hunt or roam. She waits. She watches. Not with hunger, but with knowing. They say she asks riddles, questions that twist through the heart and leave even kings undone. But what few understand is this: the Sphinx's riddles are not meant to trap. They are meant to wake. She is not a monster, though many have feared her. She is a mirror in the sand, a voice shaped like silence. And for those who do not arrive with pride or panic, she becomes something else. Tonight, under a sky that never changes, we will meet a boy, dream-lost and quiet-hearted, who does not come to solve the riddle of the Sphinx, but to live it. He will not raise a sword, he will not speak a clever phrase. He will sit, he will listen, he will ask the simplest question of all, why? And from that question, a journey will unfold, not through battles, but through memory, time, and the quiet wonder of being alive. So breathe slowly now. Let the desert wind carry your thoughts into stillness. For the sands are shifting, the riddle waits, and the Sphinx, carved from time itself, is ready to be seen. Chapter 1. The Watcher of the Sand. There is a desert that no map can hold. It stretches beyond the reach of compass and wind, where the sand sleeps in waves of gold and silence. The sun above does not scorch, and the stars never fade. This is a place not governed by time, but by presence, ancient, unmoving, and still. The dunes rise and fall like breathing hills. Some shimmer faintly, as though remembering footsteps long vanished. No paths lead here, no creatures dwell here. Only the breeze drifts slowly across the sand, as if uncertain where to go. And at the very heart of this quiet eternity sits the Sphinx. She is vast, her body like a lion, carved from stone that has never crumbled. Muscles poised, claws buried in the soft hush of the dune, she rests with a stillness so deep it hums. Her face, neither cruel nor kind, is that of a woman, regal, wise and unreadable. Eyes half-lidded but never closed, gazing outward as though she sees far beyond the horizon. She does not speak, she does not move, but she waits, for longer than memory, longer than myth. The Sphinx has waited while empires rose and turned to dust, while oceans shifted and stars were born. She has seen the names of gods carved into stone and then forgotten. She has listened to the wind change shape, from laughter to weeping to stillness again. And always she waits, Not for company, not for praise, but for a question, and a soul brave enough not to answer, but to truly listen. She has been called monster, oracle, trickster, goddess. None of these names are wrong, and none of them are quite right. Some who find her come with swords, expecting battle, others with scrolls, seeking wisdom. A few arrive trembling, caught in dreams that led them farther than they intended. All are met with the same silence, the same gaze, the same riddle. It is never the same words. The Sphinx does not repeat. Her riddle shifts with the soul who stands before her. A mirror, not a trap. A question shaped from the one who dares to hear it. Some walk away unchanged, some walk away weeping, some do not walk away at all. But always, always, she remains, still, patient, whole. Now a wind moves differently. The sky above is the same, pale, endless, untouched. But the Sphinx, whose ears have known the weight of time, turns one ever so slightly. Footsteps, small ones. Hesitant, light, not the march of a warrior, not the shuffle of a scholar, something gentler. A boy walks across the sand. He does not know how he came to be here. Only that one moment he was falling asleep, the hush of his room, the weight of dreams beginning to form, and the next he was walking through golden quiet. His name is Milo. The desert does not need his name, but it knows him all the same. Milo walks with his hands by his sides, not clenched but open. His hair curls slightly at the edges, and his clothes, simple and soft, move just a little with the wind. He is not afraid, not yet, only curious. He does not look for a door or a way out. He follows something quieter, the sense of a presence just ahead, like the feeling when someone watches with kindness. And then he sees her. The Sphinx does not move. From a distance she seems almost part of the stone, a statue placed by some long-lost god to keep the sky from falling. But as Milo comes closer, he sees her eyes. They are not stone, they are not cold, they are vast. They shimmer not with light, but with depth, like looking into a well that reflects everything except your own face. Milo stops. The sand shifts gently around his bare feet. He looks up. The Sphinx does not speak, but something inside her, something beneath the layers of waiting and watching, shifts. Not alarm, not surprise, recognition. He is small, he has no armor, no books, no torch to light his way, but he has brought something most do not. Silence. Milo takes a deep breath, not to prepare himself, but because the air is so still it reminds him to. Then he says, softly, without urgency, "Hello." It is not a challenge, not a greeting even, just a presence offered. The Sphinx does not answer, not with her voice. Instead, the sand settles a little more. The sky leans in. The desert, ancient and undisturbed, exhales, and somewhere deep in the hush between them the riddle begins, not with a question, but with a gaze. A boy, a watcher, and the soft, waiting breath of the world. Chapter 2. A boy with no answer. Milo stood at the edge of silence. The desert around him was vast, unmoving, almost sacred in its stillness. And before him the Sphinx, poised, eternal, watched without blinking. She said nothing, but she saw everything. Milo shifted slightly, brushing the sand with his toes. It felt warm, yet not hot, like memory, like something that had been waiting a very long time to be remembered. He didn't know what to say. He hadn't come with a riddle to solve. He wasn't even sure how he'd arrived here at all. One moment he was lying in bed, watching the ceiling fade into night. The next he was walking across a place he could not name, and now he stood in the gaze of something older than fear. He cleared his throat, the sound small and unimportant. "I don't think I'm supposed to be here," he said quietly. The Sphinx did not answer, but her gaze deepened. Not harsh, not curious, just present, as if she were waiting not for his voice, but for something behind it. Milo looked down, then up again. "You're very quiet," he added, not as a complaint, more like an observation. Still no reply, only the soft sound of wind slipping past ancient stone. And then Milo did something no one had done in a very long time. He sat, not at her feet, not in awe or submission, just nearby, like someone choosing to be where he was without needing to prove anything. He pulled his knees to his chest, resting his chin lightly atop them. "I don't really like riddles," he admitted, after a long moment. "They make me feel like I'm supposed to be clever, and sometimes I'm not." His voice drifted off, uncertain if it was being heard. The Sphinx did not move, but the wind shifted slightly, curling around them as if to wrap the silence in softness. Milo looked out at the dunes. They shimmered faintly in the never-setting sun. No path forward, no path back. "I had a dream once," he said suddenly, "that I asked a question and nobody answered. And when I woke up, I couldn't remember the question, but I missed it. Is that strange?" Still, the Sphinx said nothing, but in the stillness, something opened. Not a door, not a sound, a presence. Milo closed his eyes. He wasn't afraid anymore. In fact, he felt peaceful, as though this moment, quiet and strange, had always been waiting for him. He opened his eyes again and turned to her, to the Sphinx, who had watched the world change and stood unchanged. "Are you lonely?" The words were soft, but they did not vanish. They settled around her like dust returning home. Something moved then, not her body, but the space between them. Her gaze, for the first time, changed. Not entirely, but enough, a flicker, and within Milo's heart, young, untrained and tender, he felt it, not an answer, but a question returned, not in words, not even in thought, but in knowing. She was not lonely, but she knew what it meant to be, and that was enough. He smiled, almost without meaning to. "You're not going to test me, are you?" he asked. The wind curled again, brushing against his shoulder like a quiet laugh. "I don't think I'm here to win anything," Milo continued. "I think I'm here because I asked the question I didn't know I had." He turned back toward her fully now, his eyes clear. Is that what a riddle is? A question you didn't know was yours? And for the first time, not with voice, but with stillness, the Sphinx replied, yes, not spoken, not shown, simply felt, like sunlight behind closed eyes, like the pause between a tear and a breath. Yes. Milo leaned back on his hands and looked up at the sky. Then maybe I don't need the answer. And still she watched. Not because she was testing him, because she was listening. And in the warm, waiting silence of the desert, a boy who had come with no answer was beginning to understand the shape of a question. Chapter 3. The Walk Through Wonder. The desert was not endless. It only seemed that way. Milo stood, brushing the sand from his hands, and turned to the Sphinx. She had not spoken, not stepped, not changed, and yet something between them had shifted. "Can we walk?" he asked, unsure why the question felt important. The Sphinx did not nod, she did not move, and yet she was suddenly beside him, not with sound or weight, but presence. Milo didn't startle. In dreams, things often happen like this. Quietly, correctly, as if time and space themselves were listening for how best to unfold. So they began to walk, side by side, boy and being, through the dunes that held no footprints. The Sphinx moved like breath, her paws making no sound. Her shadow was long but gentle. At first there was only sand. Then the landscape began to change. Not abruptly, not with the jolt of waking, but softly, like mist warming into morning. The dunes fell away, replaced by stone paths that shimmered with stories. Symbols appeared beneath their feet, not words but shapes of meaning, swirls and constellations, eyes and open hands. The path itself spoke, though not in any voice Milo could hear. They came upon a pool, still as glass, nestled between stone pillars, worn smooth by ages of silence. "Is this a memory?" Milo asked. The Sphinx did not answer aloud, but the surface of the pool shifted. Within it he saw a child, not himself, kneeling beside a gravestone. No tears, just quiet, and then a small flower placed gently at the base. A goodbye with no words. Milo watched. He didn't know whose memory it was. Perhaps it didn't matter. He turned to the Sphinx. "Why do we remember sadness so clearly?" The pool rippled. The Sphinx's gaze flicked downward, then back to the horizon. "Because sadness listens." The answer wasn't spoken, but Milo felt it, warm and true. It hears us, even when joy forgets. They walked on. Now the air changed, cooler, filled with a soft hum. They passed beneath an arch of petrified trees, their roots spiraling into the stone like veins. Light glowed from within the trunks, pulsing gently with unseen memory. Above them the sky had darkened into indigo, not with threat, but with stillness. Stars turned slowly overhead, each one flickering in time with the rhythm of their steps. "Where are we now?" Milo asked. The Sphinx paused beside a low altar, where a single candle burned in a bowl of sand. "This is the place where questions rest," came the knowing. "Not answers." The candle flickered. "Not yet." Milo sat again. The Sphinx stood close, silent but present. He watched the flame. It did not waver. "I don't know what I'm looking for," he said. The Sphinx finally moved, not toward him, but toward the flame. She breathed, not with lungs, but with a presence that stirred the air like song. The candle bowed, did not go out. Milo understood. "You're not here to give me answers. No voice, no nod, but agreement all the same. You're here to keep the question safe." And somehow that was more comforting than any solution could ever be. They rose and walked once more. Now the world softened. Stone faded back to sand, though this sand sparkled faintly, like snow caught in moonlight. The air smelled of something he couldn't name. Not flowers, not fire, just warmth. The Sphinx slowed. They had arrived at a hill, low and round, overlooking the dunes that curved forever. From here, the whole desert seemed to breathe. Milo sat at the hill's edge. "So many people must come to you," he said, "trying to be clever, trying to win." The Sphinx lowered her head slightly. "Yes," Milo whispered, "but the real riddle, it isn't about the answer, is it?" The stars overhead pulsed slowly like heartbeats. Milo looked up at her. "It's about the way we live the question." And for the first time, the Sphinx blinked, not sleepily, not slowly, but with a kind of grace, like a moment of silence given shape. And together they sat, not to wait, not to end, but to be. Chapter 4. The Echo of the Question. They sat together as the stars turned slowly overhead, not moving forward, not reaching back. Just resting. Time passed, though not in minutes or hours. It passed the way sand does through fingers or a thought through a quiet room. Milo did not feel the need to speak. He didn't feel the need to leave. Here, with the Sphinx, silence wasn't emptiness. It was comfort. It was a shared hush that made space for something else to speak. Eventually, Milo stirred. He turned toward her, and her gaze met his with the same steady warmth as before. "What happens to the questions people leave with you?" he asked. The Sphinx's eyes closed slowly, once, then opened again, and the wind began to move. Around them the sand shifted and rose, not in a storm, not in a warning. It danced in small spirals, lifting gently into the air like smoke. Tiny motes of golden light began to glow within it, dozens, hundreds, each one flickering softly like fireflies made of thought. Milo stood, staring in awe. "What are they?" The Sphinx didn't speak, but he understood. These were the echoes of questions, not answers, but questions, left behind by all who had come before. Each one still glowing, still searching, still singing in some soft and secret way. Some floated upward and vanished like stars. Others drifted close to the ground, curling around the roots of stone. Some pulsed brightly, others barely shimmered, but all of them were alive, in a way only questions can be. Milo reached out to touch one. It hummed gently against his palm. Not hot, Not cold, not sharp, just knowing. He didn't hear words. He felt a feeling, the shape of uncertainty mixed with wonder, a question not meant for him, and yet it fit in his hand like something familiar. "What was this one?" he asked. The Sphinx turned her head slightly. One golden eye gazed directly into his. It was once, "What if I fail?" Milo blinked, and the question floated gently away. They walked then, slowly, through the field of questions. The dunes around them had become quiet wells of soft light. Every few steps, another shimmered near Milo's feet. He crouched beside one. It glowed blue, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. He placed his fingers near it. This one asked, was it enough? It caught in his throat, not because he had asked it, but because he might one day. The question was not sharp, but it echoed. He looked to the Sphinx. Do they ever get answered? The sand swirled slightly beneath her paws. Sometimes, but not here. Where then? In the living. Milo looked out at the horizon, where the sand stretched on into soft shadows. So the questions go with them? Yes, like seeds. He paused. Some people are afraid to ask them, aren't they? Most, and some never stop asking. Few. They reached a rise in the sand where 3 small stones stood like seats. The Sphinx paused. Milo sat. For a long time they listened, to the breeze, to the flickers of distant questions, to the soft rhythm of thoughts not yet thought. And then Milo whispered, I think I know what my question is. The Sphinx did not speak, but she turned all her focus to him, not leaning in, not looming, just listening in the way that makes someone feel fully seen. Milo looked at his hands. What do I do with it? The Sphinx took a slow, deliberate breath, or something like breath, and lowered her gaze to the sand at his feet. And there, softly, a question bloomed, not written in letters, not etched in sound, but rising like mist, his own. Milo stared at it. He didn't need to read it aloud. He already knew it. How do I live knowing that I don't know? It shimmered like a thread made of starlight and breath, and the Sphinx did something she had not done in centuries. She lowered her great form beside him, not to dominate, not to instruct, but to rest with him, together, not over the riddle, but inside it. Because now the question was not something Milo needed to answer. It was something he could walk with, like a companion, like a truth still unfolding. He sat for a long time, and as the wind moved around them once more, he whispered, I think that's enough. The Sphinx said nothing, but she blinked, and that blink held more than words, gratitude, grace, and release. Chapter 5, When the Wind Changes. Morning, when it came, did not arrive with light. There was no rising sun in the sky above the desert, no chorus of birdsong or shift in colour, and yet Milo felt it, a change, a stirring, like the hush before a leaf falls, like the space between a thought and a word. The wind had changed, not in strength, but in shape. It curled now with a different tone, not colder, not warmer, but aware, awake. He opened his eyes, though he hadn't meant to close them. The Sphinx still lay beside him, her form vast and unmoving, yet her presence, so still for so long, felt newly alert. Her gaze, when he looked up, was fixed not on him, but on the horizon. Something in her silence had deepened. Milo sat up slowly. "Is it time?" he asked. No words replied. But she stood, not abruptly, not with finality, gently, like mist lifting from the surface of still water. He stood too, brushing sand from his clothes, though none clung. He didn't know what he was preparing for. He just knew something was ending or beginning. They walked once more, but this time there was no destination. The dunes shifted around them, still hushed and glowing. No footprints remained where they had sat. The questions, all those shimmering echoes, had faded back into the sand like seeds returning to sleep. At last they stopped atop a rise. The sky beyond was painted in indigo and gold, though no sun hung in it. Below them was the gate. It had not been there before. Not visible, at least. Now it shimmered gently, like heat above stone, an archway made of light and memory, humming with quiet welcome. Beyond it, nothing was visible. Only a soft suggestion of waking. Milo swallowed. The Sphinx stood beside him, her body poised but still at peace. One massive paw stepped forward, then paused. She did not cross. "I have to go alone, don't I?" he asked. Still no voice, still no sound, but a warmth pressed gently around him, like a cloak drawn over his shoulders. The answer was yes. Milo turned back to her, and this time he stepped closer. He placed a hand lightly against the curve of her stone flank. It was cool and smooth, yet beneath it he felt something old and soft. Not weakness, something else, kindness. "Will you remember me?" For a long moment the Sphinx did not blink, and then, slowly, she did, once, deliberately. And in that blink was the entire answer, "I already do." Milo nodded, and then he smiled, not a big smile, just enough, the kind that holds tears and gratitude at once. He turned toward the gate. The wind brushed past him like a farewell. Lifting his curls from his forehead, he stepped forward, one foot, then another, and then he was gone. Somewhere above the desert, in a small bed beneath a sky filled with morning, Milo stirred. The room smelled like sun and fabric and the faint trace of dreams. The kind that vanish when you reach for them, but leave warmth in your chest. He opened his eyes slowly. He lay still for a moment, blinking. Then he smiled, not because he remembered, not completely, but because something inside him did. He rose from bed and padded across the room to the window. The world outside looked the same, but different too, softer, sharper, like a question he hadn't asked yet. He stepped outside. The grass was wet with dew. The birds were just beginning to stir. He sat on the front step and watched the sky brighten with gold. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence was enough, because now Milo carried something within him. Not an answer. A question. One he didn't need to solve. One that would walk beside him as he grew, through laughter, through loss, through change. And that was the riddle of life. Not to conquer, not to escape, but to walk gently with the unknown, to hold space for wonder, to ask again and again with open hands and an open heart. Far below, the Sphinx returned to her rise in the dunes. She sat, as she always had, still serene, carved of ancient knowing, but now something had changed. Not in her form, not in the desert, but in her stillness. It felt lighter, as if someone had left a warmth behind, a flicker of presence that would never quite fade. The questions would return, others would come, some with swords, some with scrolls, some with silence, and she would ask them, not aloud, not cruelly, but clearly with her watching gaze. Some would understand, some would not, but always she would remember the boy who had not come to answer, only to listen and to live. And when the wind shifted again, which it always did, she did not move. But if you looked closely, you might see it, the faintest glimmer beneath her stone brow. Not a tear, not a smile, just the echo of the question, and the breath of a boy walking home with wonder.